Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? And welcome back. I hope you all had a great Easter break. But now it's time to get back into it. So welcome back to our daily geometry lesson. Today we're going to continue talking about geometric mean, but we're going to look at a different way to calculate the geometric mean. So we're going to look at the altitude theorem. So for altitude theorem, okay, we have our general right triangle, okay, and we draw the altitude from our 90. So I draw it straight down, okay, it creates a 90-degree angle, and this is this length B, this length BD. So if we want to solve for this length BD, we actually have an equation for it. So BD squared is actually going to equal this entire length, and this length multiplied together. So we will say BD squared is equal to AD times DC. And that's the equation we're going to use for the most part for all of these right here. So we have these four examples of equations and we're going to work to solve these. So for the first one, I want to solve for this x. So I'm going to use my equation. I know the altitude is going to be x squared is equal to our hypotenuse, or whatever our length hypotenuse is going to be multiplied together. So 4 times 6. Now, one of the little tricks to doing this kind of way is when we're to have x squared is equal to something times something, you can multiply it out, but you technically don't have to, because no matter what, this is going to be the same thing. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to say now, I want to take the square root of both terms. Okay? Now, when you take the square root of x squared, you get x. But when we take the square root of this, since we have it already separated, we can actually just take the square root of, or we can just look to find the pairs for each term. So once again, we're going to go back to our pair method, and I'm going to break it down in a factor tree style. So for 4, it breaks down into 2 and 2, and that's it. Okay? For 6, it breaks down into 2 and 3, and that's it. But once again, we're looking for pairs. So since I only have a pair of 2, that's able to come out. But since the 2 and the 3, there's no pairs attached to them, they're just by themselves, we actually don't use those at all. We just go back up to the 6, because you can't take the square root of 6. It's actually one of those terms that's an irrational number whenever you do it, so it just stays the same. So we end up having 2 square roots of 6, and that ends up being our final answer. Okay? So whenever you do that, you're just going to break them down, and you'll take the square root of each term. If you multiply them together, you end up getting the same answer. So that just saves us a step. For the second one we're going to look at, we have once again right triangle, and altitude, and we're broken down into x, 4, and 36. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish what this side is right here. And this side is actually going to be 32. Okay, so we're going to have to solve for that side. Okay, so let's see. So once again, we write our equation down. X squared is equal to 4 times 32. So for us, once again, we're going to have to take the square root of both sides, and we'll take the square root of both individual terms. Okay, so what we end up doing here is, once again, this is x, so I'm going to leave that out for now. I'm going to take the square, or we're going to factor out both terms. So this becomes 2 and 2, and 32 becomes 2 and 16. Okay? This cannot go any smaller, so it stays the same. These can go any smaller, so they stay the same. But 16 can break down again. It breaks down into 4 and 4. So now once again we're looking for pairs. I have a pair 2. So I pull them one out, and I get rid of them. I do not have another 2, so that stays by itself. But I do have another pair of 4s. So I pull one out and get rid of it inside. Okay? So now I've got rid of the 4, and I've got rid of everything on this 32 except the 2. So this is what's going to stay inside the radical. So it's actually going to say square roots of 2. So now I want to simplify the problem out. So we end up with x is equal to 2 times 4, which is 8 square roots of 2. And that's our final answer. Okay? And these are actually the more difficult style of problems because we're working with the square root. You'll actually see here when we work with when they give us the altitude, it's actually a little bit simpler. So now we're going to work this problem right here. So we have the equation. We already have the altitude, so we're going to set it up. So the altitude squared, 6 squared, is equal to these two times each other. So 5x. So now we just work it out. 6 squared is 36, and that's equal to 5x. So if we want to solve for x, we divide both sides by 5. Okay, you plug that in your calculator. We end up getting x is equal to 7.2. Okay. And once again, the last one's the same style of problem. So we're going to take our altitude and we're going to square it. So 21 squared is equal to our lengths multiplied, 30 times x. So put this in your calculator. You get 441 is equal to 30x. Once again, we're solving for x. So I divide by 30 both sides. And we end up getting x is equal to 44.7. Okay. And that's all the altitude theorem is, okay? It's using that equation that altitude squared is equal to those lengths squared or multiplied to each other. So that's it, okay, guys? I hope it makes sense. If you have any questions, make sure to ask me through Google Classroom, through email, whatever it takes. You can even comment on this video if you have questions on how to solve something or having problems, okay? But other than that, guys, hope everyone has a good day. Peace.